Hello everyone, how are you? I'm Ari Thurger and today I'm going to answer your questions, that's right. The thing is, on my Instagram I asked for video content suggestions, non-academic related, just something more relaxed to occasionally do on weekends. And don't worry, I'll continue to submit videos on Wednesdays. But once in a while I think it's healthy to get out a bit from something more serious. There were some pretty good suggestions, but most are about Q&As, and again I repeat, non-academic. So I gave you the opportunity to ask me whatever you wanted about me, some personal stuff you wanted to know, and I've picked a few questions and today I'm going to answer them. So, here we go. First question, are you single? Good start. Well, yes, but it's complicated, or rather, I'm complicated. Next, tattoo meanings. I shall probably make a video about that, given the amount of requests. I shall pick a few and tell the meaning, but suffice to say that most of my tattoos mark an initiation process and its completion, and others just initiation without an end, because it's a continuous process of learning forever. Favorite movies? Without a doubt, The Lord of the Rings. I see the trilogy quite often and every year I read the books. It's like a ritual. Aside from that, I really like Willow and the Princess Bride. Those were my very first fantasy movies. How many girlfriends did you have? That's an odd question. None of your business. Are you in a band? I was actually. Many years ago I have had 8 bands, 3 of which were my own projects. But unfortunately, the people I work with didn't take that seriously. It was just for the fun of it. But I really wanted back then to be a musician, but well, it's gone now. My first band was at the age of 14 or 15, and now I want you to guess what gender it was in the comment section. But well, my music days are done. Can we collaborate on music? Did you say music? Forget what I said early, my music days are not done. I would love to, honestly, but the problem is right now I really don't have the time for it. I don't have a lot of time on my hands. But I won't forget that proposal. Where do you live? I got like a dozen of these questions. I'm living in Portugal. A beautiful country, impeccable history. The capital, Lisbon, is the second most ancient European city, it's true. Portugal is the oldest European country. Terrible summers. I'm ghostly pale, so I don't get a tan. I just go from pale to red, and it hurts to be alive. It's also a country with terrible political corruption, which really makes life difficult for those living in here. But hey, it's the second most peaceful country in the world, which is a little bit strange. That probably means whoever is on the 10th place or something has some civil war happening in it. Also, Portugal was the first to explore the world and colonize everything, yay! And for 200 years was the biggest European empire, until England entered the game and Portugal was sent down to the second place. It's always the second in something. Are you single? Well, yes, I am. But it's complicated, as I've said. But I was luckier than most, and the gods gave me 2 good hands. Now that was uncalled for, sorry for that. A gentleman should not discuss of such things. Favorite band or artist? I listen to music depending on the mood. I can go from pop music all the way to black metal. But I'm always inclined to go to the heavy side of music, so to speak. I absolutely love Queen, but I also enjoy very much Iron Maiden. Calma, is one of my favorite bands. Their first albums, melodic death metal. I enjoy Lord Belial as well, and Ulver. But mostly I am on the mood for some ambience dark folk like Wardruna, especially when I'm making artistic works. Favorite drunken food stop when on my way from the bar. I have no social life, mate. Favorite pizza? Not a big fan of pizza, I'm afraid. Hey, sue me. You think there has been an increasing in neo-paganisms, and does it still honor the old ways? Well, this one isn't directly about me, so I'm not going to extend my answer that much. But yes, indeed, there is, or there seems to be, an increasing in neo-paganisms. A lot, actually. 20 years ago, you wouldn't hear about paganism that much, and people saying they were pagans right there in the open. But answering the second part of the question, I think neo-paganisms are in the risk of becoming a 21st century trend, and it's quickly becoming a cliché. So many people are not taking it seriously, and there are too many organizations already popping out like daisies who are just paganizations of Christian ideas and not real paganism. It's becoming such a trend that everybody wants their own organization and trying to pull people to their side to see who wins this race or this game of having more followers. It's like the very concept of social media was brought into pagan organizations. Every pile of shit somewhere has the flag of some pagan organization. And I'm sorry for that assessment, but paganism is on the rise, but at the same time it's going through a dangerous path of becoming a trend and therefore in the risk of becoming insignificant. Who's your favorite Norse figure? Most likely Bragi, who seems to play the role of diplomat of the gods, a sort of ambassador. It's a figure of great wisdom and so eloquent that every being all over the 9 cosmic worlds loves him and wants to listen to his wisdom. He is loved by all because of the truth of his words and the useful counsel he gives. Actually, that's something I strive to reach. By any means, I don't want to be loved by all. I think that would be extremely boring. We need to be mocked from time to time, lest we take ourselves too seriously. But I strive to obtain as much knowledge as I can to be able to help. And another of my favorites is hell and the entire concept of death in Norse paganism. I think it's absolutely fascinating. When did you decide to study the various subjects present in your work or videos? At the age of 15, after some traumatic events and a huge change in my life, and when I found out about my cultural heritage, I increasingly became interested in knowing about what my ancestors were up to. Have you ever been in a coven? I've been invited before, yes. I've even been invited to be a gothi of some kindreds, but I refuse to do that. I refuse to be anyone's guide. That goes absolutely against my personal beliefs. I'm a solitary pagan and I do not follow any path but my own. Therefore, obviously I won't make other people follow me. I think it's extremely arrogant to think one is in the right to guide someone. A lot of people have a lot of knowledge, yes, but knowledge isn't the same thing as understanding. I think following someone or some organization, following somebody else's interpretations and visions creates a lot of limitations. I think the true purpose of spirituality is not to follow preconceived ideas, but to know how to listen so we can understand. and have healthy conversations, exchanging ideas and perspectives. As I often say, why make enemies when we can make friends by having polite and civilized conversations? Or something like that. I don't know my own quotes. It's not like I write them all down. How's that for pomposity? How do you connect with the gods spiritually? Do you have a community or are you solo? Yes, all by myself, as I have explained before. But I do my own work, which I keep in private. Sorry about that. But let's just say I do a lot of things in the dark. How did you come into Norse paganism? I found out I had Scandinavian ancestry as well as German, Dutch. And I realized some old traditions were still within the family, and I started exploring that. Have you ever had supernatural experiences with the Norse gods? It might not seem so, but that's actually a very complicated question, because each person's perception of the gods and what is the divine is fairly different. But I've always had some very interesting experiences, yes. The great majority weren't pleasant. Always going to extremes, and I keep pushing it and go as far as I can, trying to break the limitations of my own body. One day I will end up destroying myself. But there's always something useful and unique to gain, but at great costs. Next question. You have a girlfriend, children? No, I do not. And I can honestly say I would love to be a father, but I will never have a child until there is financial security so I can provide the best for my child. I will not put another person, another human being into this world until I'm certain I can provide everything that child needs to grow up healthy and happy, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be anytime soon. But let's not get overly emotional towards that. Do you have a PhD? No, I do not. Unfortunately, no money for that. The financial background at my end as a whole isn't that great. I have a degree in history and archaeology and took several other courses, including Egyptian hieroglyphs. I was in fact the top of my class on that subject. And yes, I'm actually proud of that. That's one of the very few things I'm actually proud of. I have a long academic background, and I've been working as an archaeologist, and I haven't taken out the idea of finally complete a PhD as soon as I have the money for it and the time. It won't take me anywhere in this country, mind that, but it's always nice. It's always a nice piece of paper to add to my collection of degrees and courses. Where did you get your degree in archaeology? See, some people know about it. And how long have you been studying the past? I did some archaeological work a bit before taking the degree in Portugal. And I've been an archaeologist for about 6 or 7 years now. What's a vacation for you like? I think I will have real vacations when I die. But a real vacation for me would be spending some time with those I love the most, in peace, especially having peace of mind, possibly in the forest and being in contact with nature as much as possible. I think that would be nice, and I would be so much in peace that I wouldn't probably see the bear coming towards me to rip me into pieces. How often a day you eat surströmming? Well, it's not very common here in Portugal, obviously, but it can be found, yes. But it's rarely on my diet. But I do eat a lot of fish. And by the way, I see a lot of people in videos eating surströmming right out of the can. That's definitely not the way to eat it. Please don't do that for your own sake. You actually have to prepare that. Open it up, the fish, to get the entrails out and the fish bone, for goodness sake. It has a bad smell, certainly, but there are things out there in this wide world that smell much worse, believe me. Are you heathen or just like to study? I do like to study. Well, I've been a pagan before. I took my degree in history and archaeology. In a way, those two worlds in my life can complement themselves. I don't let my personal beliefs interfere with my academic work. When I'm working, my mind is absolutely focused and turned to science. But personal spiritual beliefs allow me to construct some religious interpretations according to the archaeological findings. As long as I have evidences to support my claims, religious interpretations are plausible. Mind that I'm not the type of person who follows unverifiable personal gnosis, because I don't dwell in fantasy worlds. I live and want to live and enjoy this reality. And I want to spiritually be in touch with the real thing. And on the other hand, my scientific work helps me to become a better pagan, I think, because by understanding how things were religiously conducted in the past, and by getting closer to the understanding of the ancient pagan mind, in my own spirituality, I may be as close as possible to the real thing. Were you raised a pagan? And if not, how did you become one? I've made a video about that, more or less explaining a few points. I was raised in the countryside in a very frightening Christian religious background. There were some pagan elements in my family. There were some pagan traditions still kept alive through traditional practices. But I wasn't aware of that when I was a child, obviously. I had to fight my way out of this religious background. It was a terrible, traumatic fight with my own head. And finally, at the age of 15, I took my first steps towards paganism. And that's when I found out about my cultural heritage. And nowadays, I try to keep some old practices alive. How long have you been a pagan? Well, I'm soon turning 31, and my first steps towards paganism were at the age of 15. I've never been good at math, but I would say it all started almost 16 years ago. Were you born inside the Norse tradition? Yes and no. There were still some pagan traditions alive in the family, but I did not have that perception when I was a child. Only later on I realized that. I don't think my family members had that perception either. They kept old traditions alive, but the family religious background was very much a harsh, traditional Christian environment. Mind that my parents were not religious, but my grandparents and my great-grandparents were. And I spent much time with them in the countryside. So I was raised a Christian, but with some paganisms in disguise. Last but not least, I guess, are you single? Good gods. Yes, I am. But it's complicated, as I've said. These questions were supposed to be fun, not to constantly remind me of my failures in love affairs. All right, it's over. I have chosen the questions that more or less go directly towards my person. And don't worry, other questions have been registered, and most likely I shall make other videos answering other questions. Be attentive at my Instagram. Once in a while I shall ask you for questions and suggestions, but keep it simple and short. These videos aren't supposed to be very elaborate. It's just so we can have a bit of fun and so you can get to know me better, to create some proximity with you. Let me know if you like this first attempt and if you want more of this. Thank you for your time and thank you for your company, of course. And as always, tack för idag.